Hello, my name is Pam Bartha. I am the author of Become a Wellness Champion and the founder of Live Disease Free. Today, the topic that we're going to be discussing is new insights into the true cause of multiple sclerosis. And I have done a few other videos on the true cause of multiple sclerosis. And so today I'm going to be talking about the true cause, but also adding in some new insights, because as we speak, there is this beautiful group of new wellness champions that have just finished a class with me. And we are constantly, thank you for all the love, we're constantly learning new insights into how to treat the cause so much more effectively. If we haven't met before, my name is Pam Bartha, and I wrote the book Become a Wellness Champion, and I have developed this system. It's called the Live Disease Free system, and it helps people recover. My history, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis 28 years ago, and I've been able to keep the MS in remission and live a beautiful, healthy, active, vibrant life for the past 28 years without MS pharmaceuticals. And I just want to thank you for all the love that you guys are sharing with me. Please share this video with other people and also engage with me. If you have comments, questions, please put them in the box. This is such an important topic, because if we don't know what causes multiple sclerosis or any other chronic disease, how can we ever truly recover? And the goal is to recover, and that's what I help people to do with the Live Disease Free Academy. So if you have been following me, or maybe you've just found me, this is your first time you found me. Last week I shared my story of how I have been able to live MS free for the past 28 years, and now it is almost 29 years. Within the next month it'll be 29 years. The week before that, I hosted my live masterclass training. We had over 1,700 people from all over the world register for that free training. And that tells me that there are so many people that are looking for answers, that we're fed up of just living with chronic disease, yes, and not enjoying our life, not living the life that we're supposed to live. So please go back. Actually, Danielle is going to be posting the replay of my masterclass training. If you haven't watched it, please do, because it's going to give you a lot more in depth. I'm going to just lightly touch on a couple of topics, but my masterclass training will go into a lot more detail about the infections. So on my masterclass training, I talked about the 4 pillars of wellness. And in my 28-year journey of putting the MS in remission and keeping it in remission for the past 28 years, I have discovered that all the important steps that we need to do fall into 4 main pillars. I call them the 4 pillars of wellness. Number 1 is we want to maximize nutrition for our bodies, right? Number 2 is to minimize infections. And in my masterclass training, I talk a lot more about the infections. Then pillar number 3 is to minimize your toxic load. And pillar number 4 is to build a healthy lifestyle. And there is a lot to each one of these pillars. So what I've done is I've created a program which is called the Live Disease Free Academy, and that helps us to go into great detail in each of these different pillars, building a step-by-step plan to helping people recover. And I'm going to share some brand new success stories that we just got on our call last night, which is so exciting. I like to share fresh new successes and stories. So I just want to welcome everyone that's joining us. Please make sure that you add your comments and your questions. This is an intimate time between you and I. And the topic today, we're going to be talking about the true cause of multiple sclerosis. This is so important because some of you are Canadians, some of you might have access to this, but there's this docu-series on right now, and it is called Interrupted Brain. And I think it's Global News in Canada that's putting it out. So hopefully, if you're from other countries, you'll be able to watch it. But it is so disheartening to see this, and I haven't had a chance to watch them. But next week, I'm going to be doing a review, because they're still talking about, it's kind of like the dark ages. We don't know what causes MS, but at least now we have 14 different types of medications for multiple sclerosis, and it's a $23 billion a year industry. They said the average person with MS, it costs like $20,000 a year, and that is completely inaccurate. Well, maybe for Canadians, I'm not sure, but for like mostly in the United States, I know that the medications are at least $10,000 a month, the newer medications. So that would be a very inaccurate statistic for the general, like worldwide. It is a very expensive disease. It is a devastating disease. And the truth is, for at least 30 years now, we have known that multiple sclerosis is caused by 3 different things. The first one, the main one, is infection. So that is the main cause, is infection. And when I say infection, it's not one infection, it's multiple infections. Number 2, it would be toxins. And most of the toxins are coming from the infections. And yes, we live at a time when we have a lot of heavy metals, for sure. And there's a lot of toxins in our environment. But honestly, these infections in our body, they produce so much inflammation and they produce so many toxins that are toxic to our neurons. That is the biggest reason why we're dealing with toxins. It's like we have our own personal chemical factory in our bodies. And number 3 would be nutritional deficiencies. We know in science that if we have any nutritional deficiencies, that can cause disease. Today we're going to talk about infections because that truly is why we're suffering with multiple sclerosis. That's the biggest reason. So I've been dialoguing with a leading professor at a university who is not anywhere near the understanding of what I'm talking about. And so he's like, how is it possible that we could have these infections when we've cured infections, right? We have all these antibiotics and we've cured them. Well, in the medical world, when we're talking about infections, they're thinking about an acute infection where you get a high temperature and you get redness and swelling, and the doctors know, well, we're just going to put you on antibiotics because that's going to treat the infection. But the doctors do not know about silent chronic infections in the body. So there are many, many microbes that can get out of balance, different parasites and fungus and bacteria and viruses that do not necessarily give us a high temperature, fever. Our doctors don't have good tests and they can't pick them up. So you might be saying, well, Pam, how do you really know? Where's the evidence? So what I've done is I've created a research paper, a page for you. And it shows some of the different types of infections that cause multiple sclerosis. And you will be very surprised to find that way back in 1911, they found Beryllium spirochetes, which are these little corkscrew bacteria. They found them in the central nervous system of MS patients. And then there were many, many studies, about 50 studies leading up to in the 50s. And in the 50s, Time magazine wrote an article saying this bacteriologist has found these different spirochetes, these little corkscrew bacteria in the central nervous system of MS patients. Could this be a cure? And then the ball was dropped. And you might wonder why. Why is it dropped? Then we know through the research on that page, and Danielle is going to post it also in the feed of this video, that fungal overgrowth is a really big part of chronic disease. And I want to just step back for a minute. Everything that I'm sharing is not just for multiple sclerosis. It also is imperative for anyone who's dealing with chronic disease. So fungal overgrowth, and there are at least 400 different types of fungus that can get out of balance, and they don't necessarily cause a high temperature in your body. So we can have these increasing grades of infection, fungal infection, that give us all kinds of symptoms. And we know that just if we look at Candida, it can produce over 70 different toxins in our body. Remember I talked about that chemical factory in your body? So when we're looking at this and we're saying, oh my gosh, there could be multiple parasites, there could be multiple different types of fungus, we could have mold growing in us, we could have Candida, we could have Aspergillus. That's just 3, right? And then we talk about the bacteria. There are so many different types of bacteria that can cause infections in our body. So yes, we could have an E. coli infection in our bladder where we get a temperature and we go in and we feel terrible, and they put us on a specific antibiotic because they know we have a specific bacteria and it knocks it back. But there are so many other microbes that love to live in your bladder. So if you are dealing with UTI infections, maybe urgency, you're getting up all through the night, any of those kind of situations, you are dealing with infections in your bladder. And we are only testing for just a few microbes where it could be many different, it could be parasites or bacteria, etc. So with the bacteria, we're also dealing with Lyme disease, right? So this is really coming out in research. What I'd really like you to do is to go back to the replays where you will find them either in Facebook or on my YouTube channel, Live Disease Free. I did a 5-part series on multiple sclerosis and infection. And you will see that there's been some brand new research showing nematodes in the central nervous system of people that, not just multiple sclerosis, but also other types of, people that suffer with neurodegenerative diseases. So even fibromyalgia. And what's so interesting is that we know that these nematodes, these parasitic, they're like little tiny worms. They will first grow in our intestines, and then as they become more populated in our intestines, then they will move out into our blood. And then as they become more populated in our blood, then they can actually move into our central nervous system. For the past 100 years, the veterinarians have known that when these nematodes infect the central nervous system of domestic animals, so that would be dogs, horses, cats, cows, goats, sheep, when those animals become infected with nematodes in their central nervous system, they have symptoms identical to multiple sclerosis. They've known this for 100 years, so why have they not thought, well, maybe we should check to see if humans, well, let's put it this way, they know it can be passed to humans, but why don't we check to see if maybe these nematodes are getting in the central nervous system, even if some of the people with MS, what if that is causing some of their neurological symptoms? And I would have to say, yes, it is, because one of our one of our students very recently just went through 2 courses of anti-parasitic pharmaceuticals and noticed a huge shift in her vision and her mobility after 2 rounds of using anti-parasitic pharmaceuticals to treat nematodes. This is groundbreaking. So it's not just the science showing it, and it's not just like the research, but it's also our students are implementing this, and we're getting huge improvements in their quality of life in a very short period of time, weeks. Very, very significant. So nematodes, I did one little calculation. I want you to visually understand if you're really, really sick with chronic disease. I want you to close your eyes and think about this. Okay, so if I have nematodes, let's say, and the nematodes, like this one beautiful student just joined us last week, and she's a medical student, and she has been studying her blood. She has multiple sclerosis. And she found that within, like 4 drops of blood, she can actually find 1 or 2 nematodes in her blood. And she's also been looking at someone else with multiple sclerosis, that person's blood, and finding nematodes in their blood also. These are little parasitic worms. They should not be there. It's not good that they're there. So let's just make it really simple. So if we only found 1 parasitic nematode in 4 drops of blood, how many nematodes could be present in the volume of blood in our body? And I did a quick calculation. It could be over 20,000 nematodes in your blood. All right? So that is very, very huge. So if you're like, Pam, I don't know about all of this, please listen to Dr. Alan McDonald's lecture. He will show you pictures of what he has found in the central nervous system of every single brain fluid, spinal fluid and brain of people that had passed away from multiple sclerosis. He has studied them. And yes, he finds Beryllium, which is Lyme disease, but he said, I found far more of these parasitic worms. All right, so there is research on this. And then when you just go through the resource that I have for you, because you'll see the links there and you can listen to the video. This is really huge. So you can envision inside of you that it's very possible you have a bunch of these parasitic worms. And then what I can share with you from my other students is that when we have serious chronic disease, we don't just have those nematodes. We have other different types of parasites. We could have liver flukes. We could have parasites in our gallbladder. We could have parasites in our lung. We also what my students are passing, and they're sending me pictures of this. So in our class, they're sending me pictures of big parasitic worms that they're passing. And maybe those big parasitic worms, whether they're tapeworms or flatworms, they may not be causing the biggest neurological symptoms for them, but you can understand that they should not be there. They carry their own microbes that they deposit inside of us. They carry heavy metals. They rob a lot of nutrition from us. So I want you to think, so if I'm really, really sick, because this is honestly what I'm seeing my students. They have different types of worms, not just in their GI tract, because a lot of times they move into different parts of the body, but they come down there to mate. So bigger worms, then we're talking about those little nematodes, which are like a little dot of a pencil. All right. Then I want you to think about fungal overgrowth, because fungal overgrowth is something that we all carry candida, for example. And if we are healthy, we have a tiny little bit of it inside our intestines in our body. But when it gets out of control, it produces this root structure, and it looks like threads. If you've ever had really bad crabgrass in your lawn, and it produces that really strong root structure underneath the grass, and it doesn't matter how much seed you sprinkle on top of the good grass, it's not going to take, because that bad crabgrass has taken over. Well, that's what fungal overgrowth is like. So we could take a little herb blend to knock it back for a couple of weeks or 6 weeks, but we're not even putting a dent in it. All right, so this is where we have to understand what we're dealing with, so that when we're like, oh, well, I've changed my eating plan and I'm exercising and I'm still sick, it's like you have to envision what you really are dealing with. So we have this fungal overgrowth, and it loves to live in our sinuses. It loves to live in the vaginal tract, in the prostate, fingernails, toenails. It actually is in our central nervous system and in our blood. I've got evidence, the studies in the in that evidence that multiple sclerosis is caused by infection. You'll see it all there. They're finding it in people that have MS. They're finding fungus in their blood. They're finding it in their central nervous system. So it should not be there, right? So that takes care of those two. And then we're talking about Beryllium. And what I'd like you to envision is Beryllium is just one of the many different types of bacteria that can be a problem, but Babesia is another one, especially with MS and neurological conditions. And there's Ehrlichia, there's Bartonella, there's many others. But let's just talk about one. Let's just talk about Beryllium. Beryllium, when we become infected by a mosquito or a tick, it does not just stay in the blood. It moves into our lymphatic system. It moves into our red blood cells, into our white blood cells, into our different tissue cells. And so it causes a lot of havoc. It moves into the central nervous system. We know that those little nematodes, those little parasitic worms, they actually carry Beryllium into our central nervous system. It's like a Trojan horse. So yes, it is involved. And so if we had a healthy, strong immune system and we're exposed to Beryllium, our body could handle it and would fight it. Most of us have been exposed to Beryllium and all of these different infections. But when you've got these big worms and these little worms, and you've got, and I forgot to mention protozoa. So protozoa are these tiny little, they're like a little dot, and they actually infect our white blood cells. All right, so they actually make our immune system not run properly. And you've heard the old saying that, oh, MS, our immune system is attacking itself. Well, no, our immune system at that point is overwhelmed with infection. Scientifically proven that there's over 17 different ways that these infections cause immune dysfunction and inflammation in our body. So our immune system is intelligent. Thank you for all the thumbs up. We've got to go back to common sense. It's genetically programmed. It knows how to operate. We're dealing with infections and toxins, and when you treat those, people start to recover. So we can have protozoa that are inside our cells. We can have different other types of bacteria that are inside our cells. We can have big, small parasites, and that's truly where we're at. And then, of course, we can have heavy metal toxicity, like a lot of people in this world, unfortunately, where we're living at this time that we're living. So that's the picture that I want to paint. That's what you're up against. And there is no diet that is going to treat all those different types of infections. So that is the second pillar, and I talk more about that on the masterclass training. So the key to getting well is that you have to use a holistic approach, and you have to shift your focus away from like diet. Most people are focused on diet and exercise, and you've got to shift it to treating the cause. When you do that, that's when people recover. It still takes work, right? Because we're dealing with deep-rooted, deep-level infections, but it's still going to take work. That is the key. So the problem is that with this interrupted brain, it is not giving people hope, and it is so behind the times. And they're honestly just advocating pharmaceuticals from what I have seen, unfortunately. And I just want you, when I listen to little bits of it, and I'm going to listen to the whole thing because I want to give a review on it next week, but I just want you, if you listen to it and it makes you feel sick to your stomach, if it takes away your hope, I want you to honestly say, no, that's not it. There is a cure, there is hope, there is a better way. And this is not something I've come up with. This is something that has been known for 30 years. When I got sick with multiple sclerosis 30 years ago, I was so incredibly blessed. I believe it was divine intervention. My mother-in-law gave me a single book, one book, that talked about the true cause being infection. And early on, at that point, I decided that's the direction I'm going, because I was given no hope. I was told that I would be completely disabled, that my life was pretty much over. It would either go fast or slow. They didn't know. They'd monitor me. But when I found that book, which talked, and this was 30 years ago, so how is it possible that 30 years later we are still not treating infection? That's a topic for another day. So I hope you guys are putting your questions in the question box, because I would really like to answer them, and I'm just going to make sure that I have covered everything. What I'd like to do right now is I want to show you some clear, like, proof of the pudding, right? Like, this is what my students have sent me. We just did the call last night, so just in the last couple of days. So we're just starting a new class. It's a program where people are following a step-by-step plan to, first of all, stop feeding the infections. Second of all, build up their body. Third of all, figure out which infections they have, where they want to start, and start to chisel away at them step by step by step. And then building a healthy lifestyle and a mindset of a wellness champion, and spending a lot of time cleaning up the environment even more, and then breaking it into 30 and 60 and 90-day goals. It takes us 3 months to get through that. But I want to share with you, first of all, a couple of little insights and successes that some of the brand new students are sharing with me. So we're just filling the class now, but a few people found me a week or two early, so they got a little bit of a head start. And I just want to share with you just what we see. So the first step, as I mentioned, is we want to stop feeding the infections. And feed the body, but not the infections. So we can't kill them with diet, but we can certainly put them on a fast. And when we do that, this is what Joe has noticed already. So Joe shared, I truly believe that the Live Disease-Free Academy is the solution to my MS symptoms. I am following the eating plan well. The symptoms that were most debilitating to me are becoming manageable already. So fixing incontinence, brain fog, constipation, and mobility are all within my reach. No longer am I taking any pharmaceuticals or prescription or non-prescription drugs. I love this eating plan. Thank you so much for giving me hope, a plan, and my life back. So I'm going to go through a couple of different brand new students. Thank you for the love. And then I'm going to share with you why, like what kind of symptoms do we notice when we stop feeding those infections so much? And this is proof, like for people within a week to 2 weeks, they start to notice improvements. Katie, I feel like my bladder is settling down a little just in 2 weeks, and that my eyesight seems to be a little sharper, and I'm not noticing the discomfort I used to experience in my left hip lately. I feel that the pins and needles in my left shoulder, arm, and hand are not as severe or as often, nor the spasticity in my shoulder blade area. I am happier and determined. Thank you. You guys are pouring out a lot of love. Aren't you proud of Katie? So she's implementing really well. I'm happier and determined, and my eating plan is better than it has ever been before. And then Jeff, my bladder urgency is improving. So the commonality with all these students that are just starting, and this is what you can expect. And, you know, if you are at the place where you're like, I want to be a wellness champion, I want to join them, I want to follow this plan, all you have to do is listen to my free training, the masterclass training. You'll have instructions after that. And I do have a ton of, if you want to get to know me better, there's a ton of videos on YouTube, and it's the Live Disease Free channel, where there's a lot of free content I have. And people are writing in all the time, sharing how it's already impacting and helping them with symptom improvement. But remember, if you really want your life back, you have to treat the infections, all right? So this is what we see in the first few weeks of just stop feeding those infections so much. We find that people's bladder settles down. The infections are still there, but they're not getting fed as much, so they're a little more quiet. So people get up less through the night. They have less urgency. People have a little more energy. They're sleeping a little bit better through the night. They can notice small changes and improvements in spasticity, a little bit of strength, but just feeling happier, right? Feeling not so depressed because you're not getting quite as many toxins to the brain. That's a good sign. That tells me people are following it well. And then as they are supporting the body, they continue to see little improvements. But if they ever went back to eating the wrong food, then it would be like putting gas on a fire, and those infections would flare and people would start to feel lousy again. We have to treat the infections, right? So then when we get to the killing part, I just want to share with you a new case study. So this came in yesterday, and I'm not going to say her name because I want to keep it confidential because she shared some amazing, profound things. But so this student shared with me some pictures. So let me backtrack for a minute. When she started with me, there's a small group of students that are so sick that they just have such a hard time even using any herbs, because even single herbs to start killing, they have supported their body, but they just are very sensitive to medications and herbs. So for her, even single herbs would just not work for her. She just felt horrible. So I recommend that she started with this very gentle oxidizing therapy. It's a treatment for treating infections. So she started with that, very low and slow. Didn't hear a lot from her and her husband. And, this is where some of my students are like giving me lots and lots of feedback every week. And some of them are more independent, but she was working away, following things. And I did hear from her that with the activities, etc. So she was improving. But I just got some pictures just over the last couple of days. The first ones were where she's actually releasing some of these parasites from her intestines. And it looks almost like a little shell, right? And we know that some of these bigger worms, chunks will break off of them. And in that chunk, like a little segment, there are many, many eggs, really disgusting. And so it looked like it was open and the eggs were out. But they took it to a vet, and the vet confirmed that yes, that is from a parasitic worm. Then a couple of days later, she sent me these other pictures of big worms that she was passing. And so I'm like, okay, that's great, you're passing. And also biofilm, and we call it ropeworm biofilm. But she was also passing all of these things. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but how are you feeling? Are you noticing, are you noticing huge improvements? So this is what she shared with me. This is what I shared with our group just yesterday. Oops, I have the wrong one here. So what they shared is huge symptom improvement. She still has work to do, but we are so excited. And then all in caps, it works, it works, it works. Still working on her gait and her eyesight, but she has so much more energy, and her brain fog and her bladder urgency are gone. Also, her breathing is so much better. She can breathe really deeply now. She is like an energized bunny right now. She makes breakfast and lunch for the kids every day. She hasn't done this for 3 to 4 years. Normally, showers would kill her energy for the day, but this weekend she had a shower, then she made lunch, then she went shopping in not one but 2 stores, and when she got home, she made supper. What a day. She also used to be very sensitive to everything, as I know, but not anymore. So now she's starting to really aggressively hit the parasites. And before, she couldn't handle a single herb. Like if she were to take, let's say, caprylic acid or oil of oregano or a single herb, she couldn't even handle that. But now she was just, for the last few days, she started taking a blend It's an anti-parasitic blend, and she was doing 3 capsules 3 times a day, and she could handle it no problem. So what I want you to consider too is that, you know, and some of you are brand new students, I know that you're on this Facebook Live right now, is that when we get to the killing phase, this is a golden nugget, write it down. You have to understand that you can't just pop a pill, whether it's a herb, whether it's an anti-parasitic drug, you can't just pop a pill and be permanently cured when you're at this level of infection. Because these bugs are hiding in these biofilms, in your bladder, in your intestines. The biofilms can be in all kinds of different parts of your body. And what this student was doing is she was releasing them, and I saw the pictures in the toilet, and it's like white. It is, if you actually look at pictures of biofilm, and I'm going to be doing more videos. I can't do it on Facebook yet. The technology isn't there, but I wanted to show slides. But we have to envision what we're dealing with. If we want to have long-term success, it's not just about knocking back the infection, because if they come, once you stop treating them and they come out of those biofilms, then you start to feel sick again. And that's golden. That's really golden. So if you're brand new and you're working with me right now, that's what you have to remember. And so these are huge insights. All right. I don't know that this is happening anywhere in the world. So you guys are, you know, I call you the trailblazers. So they finished off by saying, we are starting to treat parasites now. We are so excited, and we're so grateful to you, Pam, because we would have never figured all of this out on our own. And that is the key, is that you can try to slug this out on your own. I did, but I didn't have anybody. This was in 1988. I didn't even have the internet. And it was really hard. And I went from naturopath to herbalist to Chinese medicine doctor to acupuncture, iridology, on and on and on. Over the years, lots of chiropractor. And it's not to say that nothing worked. I did spend a lot more money than I needed to, and it took a lot longer to figure this out. But by the grace of God, we have figured out enough so that I've got the bad microbes down, the good ones up enough, and I've been able to manage that for 28, going on 29 years. And you can too, right? So I don't want you to be hopeless. I don't want you to think that, oh my gosh, I have to go for, you know, like the stem cell transplant, chemotherapy. I've talked to a lot of people and they're still sick with MS. So that is the honest truth. And that is going to, and what I saw on this documentary, those are not what I'm seeing with people. I've interviewed at least 700 people by now that have multiple sclerosis. And if you think about it, if you're loaded with infection, does it make sense to wipe out your immune system? No. It makes a lot more sense to treat those infections. Then allow your immune system to help in the fight, because then you've made it more of a fair fight and it can handle it again. So I just wanted to share that with you. Huge, profound insights, really, really profound. So it's not just the research. I've got the research for you, but it's also the case studies of people recovering. And in my masterclass training, I share a lot more case studies of people that have recovered. Actually, we have our first wellness champion that had her baby. She was infertile and dealing with multiple sclerosis, and she just delivered a beautiful, healthy baby girl just a couple of weeks ago, and naturally, which is amazing. And if she had not corrected her fertility, she definitely, even though beating the MS, she would not. And it's all stemming from infection, even the infertility and many other things you're dealing with that you don't know. So the last little success I wanted to share, and the insight here is that this student she follows the eating plan, so she's not feeding the infections, right? And then she's been supporting her body, doing all those things. And then she is starting to treat infection. But she is another one that has to go lower and slower than some of my other students. So she looked at her symptoms and she's got a lot of parasites. So she's going to start treating parasites first. And she started to follow the protocol of this recipe that we have for treating parasites. But she found it too strong. And she found that, it's just wiping me out. So I said, start with 1/8 of the dose, which is ridiculously tiny, 1/8 of the dose. She did. This is what she had to say. So she shared, wow, only 3 days and I'm at 1/8 of the dose and I'm already stronger physically. Oh my goodness, Pam, I am so excited. For 2 days now, I've been feeling strong. I even wore low heels, no problem. So for many of us girls, we can't wear heels because of the balance issues, because of chronic disease and multiple sclerosis. But she's actually starting, and this is like 1/8 of the dose. So that is the benefit of working with somebody who understands these infections, because we can't all go at the same pace. We don't all have exactly the same levels of infection. We have different environments, but we have generally lots of parasites. We have lots of fungal overgrowth. We have lots of different types of bacterial infections, probably some that we don't even know, right? And yes, there can be viruses too. But are the viruses causing the multiple sclerosis? I really don't think so. I did a video on that. You can find that on Live Disease Free. I'm going to go to your questions to see what kind of questions you have for me. All right, hopefully my scroller will work here. Oh, let me see. It just, oh dear, that's not what I wanted. Okay, try this again. There we go. Now it's moving. Technology is great when it works. So hello, Dawn. Hi, Oksana. And hi, Sybil and Janet and Vicky. I'm so happy you're here too. Tiffany. Hi, Isadora. And Roxanne. Hello, Roxanne. And hi, Jenny. Hi, Diane, Michelle, and Janet, Jeanette, Norris. Okay, I don't see a lot of questions yet. You guys are all pros. So please make sure, if you haven't reviewed the evidence that multiple sclerosis is an infectious disease, please do so. And I almost forgot to tell you, but I'm hosting a Coachathon, a live Coachathon training this Saturday. All right, so the first step you have to do is, if you want more information about possibly being a wellness champion and following a step-by-step plan to recover, first watch my masterclass training. Secondly, you will be getting the information once you register for my masterclass training. We'll be sending you an email about the Coachathon. And the Coachathon is a real intimate time. It's usually a smaller number of people on there, but it's more people that are just really serious about getting well. And this is where I have time to be a little bit more intimate with you, talking about the steps and just answering your questions. So make sure you join me on Saturday for the Coachathon. All right? So you'll please watch out for the email about that. All right, so not a lot of questions. So, oh, here we go. Pamela, how do we get rid of these parasitic worms? As I mentioned, you can't just take an anti-parasitic drug to treat them, because as I mentioned, there are these, remember, you have to envision there's these slimy tents that they hide under. So even if you so there are some anti-parasitic drugs that work really well, but you have to get a prescription. But you have to change the terrain. So what we're seeing is, number one, you have to stop feeding them. Otherwise, they're really hard to treat. Number two, you have to build up your body, a lot of steps. So on the Coachathon and on my masterclass training, I go into detail. There's a lot of steps. All right, this is not snake oil. This is not a quick fix. It is the real deal. And when you do those two things first, and then you look to see which types of parasites you have, and you start treating them, you can use herbs, specific herbs that would treat them, but you could also use anti-parasitic drugs, which would have to be prescribed. But this is where some of my students are using herbs and they're becoming symptom-free. And some of the students, they will need something stronger, like the anti-parasitic drugs. So the jury is out right now as to whether, are the herbs going to be strong enough to get those nematodes out of the central nervous system? We don't know yet, but we're just helping students to become symptom-free. It might be down the road that we have to treat them more aggressively. I don't know. But remember, this is a golden nugget, is that even if you use antibiotics to treat the antiparasitic worms, that it doesn't mean it's a cure from them. Right? If they're hiding in biofilms, for example, they will just keep coming out when you stop. There's eggs also, remember? So there's different cycles. And so it's quite challenging treating them, but it's possible. It's totally doable. All right, so hello, Maureen. Hi, Dana. Hi, Terry. And Wanda and Rachel and Doris. Should my doctor get mad if I stop my Rebif? So Doris, this is where, number one, never stop any medication unless you talk to your healthcare provider first, right? Because some drugs, if you come off of them, it can make you feel really sick if you don't do it properly. But what all of us have to know is that our body belongs to us. And if you have done your research, so with my students, what I do is I get them to go onto pdr.net, physiciansdeskreference.net, and then I also have collected some research. You can find research online where it shows that when they've looked at the clinical studies of people that have taken Rebif and not taken Rebif, they see that there is no difference to progression to disability. So when you go into your doctor armed with, okay, number one, I am not happy with the adverse effects of this drug, because I know a lot of people tell me that the Rebif makes them feel like they have a terrible flu, like some of them are non-functioning the next day. Then the next thing what you can do is you can say, I've been researching and I see that, there's a bit of research showing that Rebif really is not very effective, that it really does not slow the progression down to disability. And because it's so toxic and it's making me feel so lousy and it may not be very effective. And I've also been doing a lot of research and I see that MS is most likely caused by infection. There's tons of evidence. Would you like to see it? Right? And so when you talk like that, he's going to be like, because he's probably not up on it, right? That's the key. And so share it with them. Share that evidence that multiple sclerosis is an infectious disease. Share all that page with them. Please do. The more of us that are sharing this, the more the doctors are going to be coming on board and opening up. So that would be really good rationale for you to say, I would like to come off the Rebif. And remember, you're doing this only if that's what you want to do, not what I want to do, not what the doctor wants to do, but what you want to do. And say, I would like to come off it. Please tell me how to do it as safely as possible. It is your body. You are the boss. All right. And you can always, what some of my students say is, if I ever need to go back on it, I can always go back on it, just to make them feel, that you're open, right? That you're not being irresponsible, and that way you're keeping the doors open, right? And it's good to do. So we're working together as a team, but I teach people how to be the director of their health. So Norris, oh my gosh, I love you so much. Thank you so much, Norris. You're so sweet. Tiffany, which is the best for MS patients, infrared or near infrared sauna? I am not sure. I know that heating the body up is really good, especially for these infections. We know that some of the infections really don't like high body temperatures, and we know that the infrared is also really good for detoxing. So I think just infrared is what most of my students are doing, but that's a good question that I could look into more. Norris, yes, there is a cure. And I don't like to use the word cure because that is like absolute, that you could never ever have chronic disease in the future. If this is part of life, it is like you can recover, right? And you can stay recovered, or you can get sick again if you go back to old lifestyle, if you go on antibiotics, etc. One thing that one of the doctors has been asking me, he's like, well, how is it that we have these infections? Like, we've cured infections. Why is MS so much higher now? And it's truly the biggest reason why we're seeing such an epidemic of not just MS, but neurodegenerative diseases. It's gone up I think almost 700%, 660% in the past 20 years. That is because, number one, we have several generations of the overuse of antibiotics. That is the first factor, which really causes this, making us go out of balance, which we call dysbiosis. So that's the first factor. Then we have high processed foods in our eating plan, which feeds the bad ones that are still living there, the bad microbes. They grow and they grow and they grow. They work their way out of the intestines. They move and settle in different parts of our body, whether it's our skin, our fingernails, our sinuses, our central nervous system, our eyes, right? We sometimes have those floaters. That would be microbes also. We know Beryllium and also these nematodes will be in our eyes. So they just move into different parts, and they do not cause these symptoms of acute infections, and that's why our doctors can't pick them up. But the overuse of antibiotics is truly the biggest factor of what's brought us to this place right now. So I'll look and see if there's any other questions. So hi, Sheris. What can we do to get rid of these, please? Is that my advice to you is that if you want to take back your life, you first of all have to become the director of your health. You have to take responsibility for your health. Your health is truly your greatest asset, and you cannot leave your health solely in the hands of any one healthcare professional. You have to understand the true principles of health, and you have to be the team leader in your health. Very, very important. Listen to my masterclass training. Start to understand pillar number 2, how to minimize silent infections, because that's what I focus on. And then if you're at the place where like, Pam, I'm ready, then join us on Saturday on my Coach-a-thon, my live call, where you can ask questions. I'm going to be talking a lot more in detail about the steps. And then you can start. We're starting a class right now. This is the orientation week, and we're just starting on lesson 1 right away, which is the eating plan. So this can be the best year you've had in many, many years, but you have to take a different path like I did, like all these other wellness champions are doing. You have to treat the cause, which is infection, and the toxins from the infections, and the nutritional deficiencies from the infections also. So Cherie, is this plant-based? Some people do want to treat the infections more with herbs, but some people do need to use pharmaceuticals, but it's just for short periods of time to treat the cause. But what I always suggest is see how far you can go with the natural, with the plant-based, right? There are lots of effective, but what we're seeing though is that this is another gold nugget. This is the honest truth with my students, is the ones that truly recover, they don't just use herbs. They would not just use anti-parasitic drugs or antifungal drugs. They use multiple therapies, right? They layer different therapies on top, because you've got to use strategy in treating these infections. That is the golden nugget there. Dawn, how does the individual know what type of infections they have in the body? That is a really good question. We do not have good tests. We don't. It's so frustrating. I don't advise my students to do these comprehensive stool analysis for $500 because they get results that are very disappointing and usually false negatives. Even the Lyme tests. You know, we have a good Lyme test now, which is more of a provoked urine DNA test, which will show Beryllium a lot better than the Western blot. But there again, pretty much all of us have been infected with Beryllium. So is it that we have a little Beryllium but our immune system is dealing with it, or is it that we have a lot? Is that the bug that's causing most of our neurological symptoms, or is it the nematodes? So what we find the most helpful at the start is symptoms. So I have a whole bunch of assessment forms where people check off. There are very specific symptoms for fungus. There are very specific symptoms for parasites, very specific symptoms for bacteria. And it's a real eye-opener. Like with everything, it's like common sense and really helping you to see where you're truly at, seeing the big picture. And then we always treat the big parasites first for most people. If somebody is like blazing fungus, which is really hugely at risk for cancer, they might start to knock that back first and then come back to parasites. But we don't ever start treating Lyme first. You've got to treat those others first, and then you may find you don't need to treat the Lyme. Then your immune system might say, okay, you've taken enough stress off of me, now I can handle it. All right. So Valerie, did you give personal training? Oh, do you give personal training? Yes. Constipation is a huge, huge issue for 99% of my students. Some of them have diarrhea, or between the two, constipation and diarrhea. And you have to be eliminating daily, having bowel movements daily before you start treating infections. Otherwise, things will back up and you will feel absolutely horrible. And as far as the enema, that's not what we focus on for constipation. You can use an enema kind of in the early stages if you need to, but honestly there are other things. One that we have found really helpful is called Oxy Powder by Global Health. So some of my students can use magnesium citrate, and that is really good. But for some of them, they are so constipated that magnesium citrate does nothing for them. So then what I found is Oxy Powder can be very helpful. And that's from the company Global Health. It is called ozonated magnesium citrate. And please, if you're going to use that, just start with little amounts. Don't start with the 4 per day. That's a lot. Start with 1, right? And then if that's not enough, then do 1 with breakfast and 1 later on in the day, and see how you do the next day. And if that is enough, just increase it slowly until you find that you're going regularly. And the other one would be the Vitality Capsules by Dr. Jennifer Daniels. Her Vitality Capsules can be really helpful. So some of my students, they might take 1 of each of them, right, and see if that's enough. And then, so the Vitality Capsules is a blend of herbs, and then the Oxy powder is ozonated magnesium citrate. The 2 together are wonderful. But remember, you are dealing with constipation because of the infections, and you have to treat the infections, and then your constipation will subside, and then you're not going to need these. How can I join the class, Rowan? Just listen to my masterclass training. You will see a link to it in the feed of this video. So just listen to that masterclass training. And I'm offering, it's called a health strategy session, but it's only for people that are ready to invest in their health right now. If you're not ready to invest in your health, like in the program, where you have a little bit of funds for the program and for taking killing agents or possibly getting a test done here or there, not a lot. We try to keep it as cost effective as possible, but it does take money to get well. And if you're not at that place yet, you can get ready for sure. Some people, they get help from family. Some people get help from churches. Some people do fundraising, right? And it is so disheartening that all these pharmaceuticals are covered that are not helping us reverse chronic disease, but all of these things that are treating the cause at this time, none of it is covered. But it's just a fraction of the cost. If you went to a clinic, they're charging anywhere between $30,000 to $80,000 for up to 3 months of treating infection. All right. So that's why you should learn this yourself, and it's so much more cost effective. But you have to be, that health strategy said, I can't help you if you're not ready right now to start taking back your health. If you're like, well, I'll have some funds in 6 months, then get back to us then. This health strategy session is just for people that are ready right now. All right. So Valerie, and I can help you, we can help you in various ways. So just be aware of that. I've got tons of free stuff. I've got the book, Become a Wellness Champion. On my YouTube channel, it's a lot of free videos, right? Live disease free. And then we have the program also. Sybil, your Metamucil, is that okay? I personally don't like Metamucil. The ones I recommended are better. And where are these plans that you mentioned? Valerie, I'm not sure what you mean. The calls, that my masterclass training is in the feed. You'll see a link to it. You can listen to it after or tomorrow. And then make sure to join us. If you're really ready, make sure to join us on Saturday for the live Coachathon. And then Jackie, yes, you're absolutely right. It will help with many, many different types of diseases. We have students that have different types of diseases: Parkinson's, cancer, not just irritable bowel, but inflammatory bowel disease, epilepsy, diabetes. Like when we have chronic disease like MS, and we go on multiple these disease-modifying drugs for years, it really suppresses our immune system, and then we have different microbes, infections moving in. We get different diseases. We could have 3 to 5 disease labels. So it's all stemming from infection. Absolutely. Great insight that you had, Jackie. What kind of herbs? So Sherry, I can't recommend herbs because it really depends on what type of infections people have. And also, I don't know anybody who's on the Facebook right now, so I can't give advice because I could give out the wrong advice. Some people are on medication. You can never just assume that it's okay to mix herbs with medicines. You can make yourself very sick. You have to make sure you work with somebody who understands how to treat the infections. All right. So Chanel, you were able to stop your Copaxone. That's another drug that the Cochrane Library has done 2 independent reviews of all the scientific literature. And they have found both times that when they've looked at all the well-done studies, there was no difference in the progression to disability between the groups of people that took Copaxone and the groups of people that did not take Copaxone. which is so sad because we've been doing that people have been taking that for 20 years and injecting themselves several times a week, which is brutal. It makes so much sense, Jolene, absolutely. And that's the key, is that we have to go back to common sense, all right? We have to go back to common sense. So Michelle, you were diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2001. The youngest son, oh, I'm so sorry. Your son was diagnosed in 2016, and you also had breast cancer, yes? I am so sorry. It's all related. And what we see is that with cancer, there's a lot of fungus, all right? With neurological conditions, the nematodes seem to be one we found that's really linked with a lot of neurological conditions, but then also the Beryllium, the Lyme disease, it's really linked to it. So you've got multiple things going on, all right? And it's not uncommon for people with MS to have cancer. So Michelle, if you want to, not just for yourself, but if you want to get your life back, but also give your son a future, you have to treat infections. So this is Doris. You have to have some open heart surgery soon, and you're going to be put on an antibiotic. Is that the same? Is that antibiotic okay? I can't give you medical advice on that, unfortunately. That is something that you have to discuss with your doctor. So what can I do now? Rachel is asking. I'm having problems with walking. So what you can do now is just start to implement the program, like start to implement the steps. The eating plan is the first step. It's not going to treat the infections, but you're also going to start to see improvements. Gordon is asking if I'm a doctor. Absolutely not. I am not a doctor. When you get sick, you start to understand that our doctors, they are really skilled at medicine, all right? But unfortunately, our healthcare system right now, the standard of care, they're not getting a lot of I would say education in health. So although they are very, very skilled and they understand the drugs really well, they don't know about diet, they don't know about infection, they're not getting that, they don't know about any of the things that we're doing. So if you like the drugs, if you think they work for you, then that's what you should do. But a lot of the people that work with me are people that are like, I've tried them, they make me sick, I'm still getting worse and worse, and this makes sense to them. So if this makes sense to you, then you'll follow it, and if not, it's a free country, right? All right, so with that, I think I've covered most of the questions. There are a couple more, but I'm gonna end it here. So for those of you that are like, you're ready, you're really ready to take a different path, you're ready to take your life back, what I would suggest is, number one, listen to my masterclass training. Number two, make sure to join me on Saturday for the Coach-a-thon, right? And some of you, I know you've been watching a whole bunch of my videos on Live Disease Free channel and on Facebook, and you're like, I know you so well, Pam. So then if you're really ready, just watch a lot of my stuff, but make sure you join us on Saturday for the Life Coach-a-thon. And go through the evidence, that page. There's tons and tons of studies and proof that MS is an infectious disease. Take a different path, treat the cause, and get your life back. With that, I'm going to let you guys go, and I will see you next week, where I will be I'll be reviewing the docu-series Interrupted Brain. Take care and bye-bye for now.